Jason Voth, that is Drew Galloway. Friday, April 11th is the day that my ground beef in the fridge expires. So I got to figure out something to do with that tonight. I said April 11th and I realized that's the date that's sitting in there. So I've got to come up with dinner plans for my family, which I'm terrible at. I should have paid more attention when my mom was cooking when I was growing up. I don't ever even cook the meals. My wife does, but she's always asking for ideas. And I'm just like, I'm not going to tell you what to cook. That feels wrong. But she asked for them. I got to figure it out. That's on me. What Drew and I have to figure out today really isn't much because we were sitting around. I was probably 2 hours ago going, man, I wonder what we're going to talk about on Friday. Nothing new on the basketball front that we really need to dive into yet. But the situation involving a certain third-year quarterback in college football has piqued my interest, and it's only gotten juicier as this morning went on. And it's a guy that just last year we did a comparison of Avery Johnson to, and Nico Iamaleava, and he is the quarterback of Tennessee. And yesterday, Pete Nakos of On3 reported that there are contract negotiations that are being done ahead of the 2025 football season and trying to, I guess, squeeze some more worth out of the situation with the quarterback and the NIL fund there. But the story read, in a move that many around the program expected, On3 has learned that Nico Iamaleava and Tennessee are in active negotiations on a new NIL deal ahead of the 2025 season. It remains unclear if those negotiations will impact Iamaleava's decision regarding the spring transfer portal, which opens next week. They did go on to say that the sources have indicated that Nico is happy at Tennessee and has a strong relationship with Coach Josh Heupel. The Vols are trying to finalize a new contract before Saturday's orange-white spring game. So that would be tomorrow. And this comes out, again, it said in there, no idea on if this would impact him entering the portal next week or not for Tennessee to lose him. But as things continue to evolve, then Nico Iamaleava's dad takes to Twitter last night to call Pete Nakos the B word. He spelled it B-I-7-C-H. I had never seen that before. Most people using like an asterisk or like a hashtag or, some other kind of special character, not a number in there. And if he was going to do it, he should have used the number 8, right? He should have used his son's number in there. But, whatever. So basically trying to say, he called it clickbait, which everybody's made fun of, where, there's a faction of people right now that if something is reported that they don't like, even if it may be factual, they just call it clickbait. This was not clickbait because everybody wakes up this morning and VolQuest, our On3 Tennessee site, reports Nico was a no-show at Tennessee practice today, one day ahead of their spring game. And drama is now in full force down in Knoxville, Tennessee. But you know where drama is not in full force, Drew Galloway?
Manhattan, Kansas.
Manhattan, Kansas, with a quarterback that is adored by fans of all ages, is probably one of the most important K-State football players in a long time. And that's not even with the on-field stuff, just everything that goes into Avery Johnson throughout his recruitment to the time he got to K-State and what could come in the next year or two. He is one of the most important players, and he is on a pedestal like almost none other. And you can compare him to all these different quarterbacks that are the same age as him, going into the same year of season, and look at all this. And he is a high-profile quarterback. People around the country know who Avery Johnson is. Coaches at top programs know who Avery Johnson is because they wanted Avery Johnson coming out of high school. He chose K-State. He's remained at K-State. And what he's done is show up to every practice, and he's been more than taken care of on the NIL front, I would imagine. I see people still talking about his lemonade and every other thing, and there's a lot more money than just lemonade money coming into him. And everything with Avery Johnson has been relatively quiet outside of the things that you want to be loud with your quarterback. He's made great plays. He gets to go on college game day before a game kicks off against Tulane, and he's walking around the field. All of these different things. it's been drama-free with Avery Johnson. The only time that I think people got skittish was when Colin Klein left to go be the OC at Texas A&M, and they thought, oh, he might leave. Turns out, no, that's not a problem. And he's been cool as can be with Connor Riley and now Matt Wells. And he shows up to practice, and the games are not being played. So 2 things here. You can give a credit to K-State and how they've handled the NIL situation with Avery Johnson, obviously making him known that, hey, you're valued. We're going to take care of you before you have to ask to be taken care of in a big way. But number 2 is just once again reaffirms something that we talk about constantly, is that there's very clearly a reason that Avery Johnson's at K-State. And it's not just because of the financial incentive that a player of his type can get at K-State. It's because he genuinely likes K-State. And this also plays into something we talked about throughout the basketball season, where you could question some of the guys on the basketball team at times of where is their engagement, where is their head at in some of this stuff. Avery Johnson is always pushing K-State stuff out, whether it's stuff about his teammates, himself, or other programs at K-State. You will see him at other K-State events. He has been the perfect leader for your college football program in this era if you're K-State. And what's going on in Tennessee only exemplifies that on a greater scale. It's impressive what's going on, and K-State fans should be really, really excited and grateful for what you have in Avery Johnson. I know they already are, but this is just another reminder that he is a special type of person and not just a special type of player.
Yeah, I got a couple things here. First, I'm going to start with all the Tennessee stuff. Number one, if you're leaking out that Nico wasn't happy and wanted to have negotiations, you don't have to put in a quote saying that he's happy being at Tennessee, because obviously he's not. Obviously, there's something that is more just at play there with money. And I know that like they try and say like, oh yeah, when he signed he was going to be one of the highest paid players, but now that's just not the case. Prove something on the field, dude. Like Avery Johnson, same age, was much better than Nico was, despite the fact that people won't really say that in the national media, that he was the best player in his own high school recruiting class last year. Number 2, if you're gonna be his dad and take to social media and you're gonna call somebody the B word, spell it out. We know what you're saying. Spell it out. Be a man and actually say the word and spell the word instead of just typing it out and then not actually fully saying it. But then yeah, K-State fans should be really happy with how Avery Johnson's been. Literally since he was recruited. I mean, I remember baking in the sun watching a 77-7, and it might have been worse, high school game between Mays and Topeka High, where Avery didn't even come out with pads on in the second half because they were up so much to start a senior season. From that point on, like, and even before, like when he committed, but Avery again, kind of in a roundabout way without really saying it because he would never say this, kind of asked or answered the question of like, what have you told other teams that are trying to recruit you, because he was still being recruited by other schools at that point despite being committed to K-State. In a roundabout way, he was like, why are you even asking? Like, I'm committed. That's just kind of what I do. When things weren't going well on the football standpoint, and especially the offense, who was Connor Riley's number one cheerleader? It was still Avery Johnson. He would always go up on the podium and say, yeah, like Connor Riley has an excellent game plan. We just aren't executing it to how we should do it. He has been the face of the program since he stepped on campus. And I think that he is going about this in a very mature way, and he is getting paid very well. The lemonade money is nice as well. I mean, if you haven't tried the lemonade, you got to try it. Hy-Vee in Manhattan, excellent play to be the only store to have it for the first like week, by the way. So you see how well he's handled everything, and I just am it makes you really appreciate that even more and be even more excited about this team and what they can do next year because you always know how bought in that the quarterback should be, but to see how well he's handled everything and how everybody kind of goes about it. Like I I'm not one that is always like, "Oh, you need to ask an Avery Johnson question at a press conference," but it shows how well thought of and how everybody thinks that he's mature that covers K-State. Then in Chris Kleiman's first spring press conference, the first Avery Johnson question didn't come until like the very end because everybody just knows how mature he is and how ready he is for this moment. So for him to go about this way, I think is really refreshing and is always super fun to see because he's a guy that just genuinely enjoys being in Manhattan and loves K State. And we've seen him at K State basketball games. He's been at baseball games. He was reposting women's basketball stuff during the NCAA tournament run that they had. Like he is probably the most polarizing and popular player at K State that I can remember in a really long time.
Yeah, well, and it's also the fact that he's not really having to share the spotlight with anybody else right now too. Like, so that's another weight on his shoulders. Like you think about the Big 12 title team, I think you could pull a bunch of different people. Yeah, a lot of them would probably say that Deuce Vaughn was their favorite player, but you also would have gotten a good number that would have said Felix Anudike Uzama or Cooper Beebe. Like you would have gotten,
You've gotten Will Howard's too.
yeah. Avery Johnson has, he's the quarterback, so there's already a lot on his shoulders, but he is the one true star on this team right now and moving into next season. DJ Giddens is gone. Like everybody knows Dylan Edwards and Joe Jackson, and they're excited for him, but like we've only seen one real game of that. This is truly the Avery Johnson show this year, which slides me into a different topic of conversation here for you, Drew. And the term pressure will be thrown around a lot, but I'm on record as saying that if K-State doesn't win a Big 12 title or make a college football playoff appearance when Avery Johnson is the quarterback, it doesn't mean that it is necessarily a failure, but it will certainly feel like one because of everything that has been built and played into this. And you talk about everybody likes what Avery Johnson can do as a football player and what that ceiling can be. They like the person, they like the brand of Avery Johnson that comes with it. Is the football finally going to come with it? And how much, number one, how much pressure is there on Avery Johnson and K-State this season to make that push? And then the other question and how that will, make sense is this team ready day one to go out there and really try to be the best team in the Big 12?
I think that there's a good amount of pressure because, and this is the beauty of college sports and college athletics right now are a disaster off the field. But on the field, what makes it so special is you only have these guys for a certain and girls for a certain amount of years. So if you want to capitalize on that window where you have some really good talent coming in. K-State did that in 2022, kind of for everybody that wasn't involved in the K-State circle that kind of felt like they were coming out of nowhere because everybody kind of just said, oh yeah, K-State probably like fourth or fifth, but everybody kind of around the program. And I remember picking K-State to the Big 12 title game in 2022 because there was a lot of star power on that team. There's a lot of star power that could be on this team as well. Dylan Edwards could be a star. Joe Jackson could be a star. There's so many tight ends right now that could be one of them could break out and have a crazy season after they all collectively had a crazy season last year. There's defensive stars. Austin Romaine is the top PFF linebacker that's returning in college football next year. The secondary is young but has star potential. What made that 2022 team special is really go back and look at how many NFL dudes were on that team. This team is kind of on that same potential of getting more and more. So you look at that as like, okay, there's a lot of star power. That brings pressure. Are they ready day one? I would say that they are more ready for the moment this year than they were last year. Last year, there was a lot of guys that it was their first time really fully being in the spotlight. Avery was one of them, but you had Jace Brown, and it was his first time really being a full year contributor. What does he do? He has the best receiving season that a Chris Kleiman wide receiver has ever had. Avery Johnson breaks the school record for touchdown passes and has the most yards by a sophomore quarterback in school history. If you really want to go back, that was really DJ Giddens' first time being the full-time starter and not really splitting with anybody, because there was times where Dylan Edwards would come in and split a little bit, but DJ Giddens got a lot more carries than I think everybody kind of anticipated. Austin Romaine, that was his first time really being a full-time starter from day one. All of those guys now, it was Toby Osunsanmi's first real time in the spotlight at defensive end. It was also Chidi Obiizers. All of those guys got some seasoning last year. This year, they know what it's like, and they have that taste. And I think that they're probably more ready for the moment. And I think that if you look at what they have done, I know that everything has just been strength and conditioning. But if you look at what they did in that strength and conditioning time, it seems like they're a lot more focused and more mature and more ready for the moment, because they have so many guys that put on so much more strength and put on so much more speed that I think that they can be day one ready. I think that the only real hesitation that I would have on day one is, what does the offensive line look like? Because that's a whole new unit, a whole new coach. Everything else, I look at it as, okay, this guy's played a ton of football already. I know that at receiver, you only really have Jace Brown that has played at K-State, but Jaron Bradley has a ton of experience. Jaron Tibbs has a ton of experience. Caleb Medford has a ton of experience playing college football. At corner, you also don't have a ton of experience playing games yet, but you have a ton of potential with Amari and Fortenberry, with Zayshawn Rich, with Donovan McIntosh. And then you have Justice James, who has played a lot of college football. So I think that you kind of look at that, and there's a combination of experience and potential that I think makes this team more ready for day one than they probably were last year.
Yeah, it's you hit on the two things that are probably the most notable, and that's the offensive line and the secondary, and it's just how quickly can they get up to speed. And we're really going to see with the offensive line, influx of transfers, but also guys that we've heard for years now. They're going to be good. And they've gotten some, spotty opportunities at times to get game experience, but now are they going to be ready, to have the full-time gig? Those two spots are probably, if they can just be decent this year, that's probably going to give you a chance, because like you're saying, everything else that's there is guys returning or getting this opportunity. And I think a lot of people are also excited to see Matt Wells be in full control of the offense now, even if, Connor Riley wasn't the reason why K-State slumped in November last year. That was a whole team type of issue that went on. But I do think Matt Wells has done it before in this spot. He comes from a background that is typically more inclined to being a successful offensive coordinator. I think it'll at least be probably a little bit more fun for fans. Although, I'm sure we'll hit some game where they start complaining about Matt Wells and they want Connor Riley back, because that's just how OCs work.
I'll even point this out that Matt Wells, since he got to K-State, has been extremely hungry and wants another head coaching gig, and knows that the best way that he can probably do that is being a really good offensive coordinator.
Yeah. And I mean, I said this after the Rate Bowl, and this was when I was talking to, thinking Connor Riley was still going to be the offensive coordinator. Scott Wildcat hates me for saying this, because, he's got his guys. He and John Kurtz love to claim guys and really like him. At least Scott does it with guys that are talented, not, John doing it with Javon Thomas and Ron Freeman or other guys like that. I wasn't going to throw in, his football pick, Daniel Sams. That was a good football player right there, just not better than Jake Waters.
It was a fine football player.
Well, here's the deal. I at the time I would have agreed with John Kurtz, but I was 13 years old. So, it was okay for me to be stupid. Now I'm 27 and I realized, yeah, Jake Waters was a pretty good quarterback now. But that's not really the point of this here. But it's looking at, I thought, hey, the Edwards and Jackson at running back might complement the way that this offense needs to be run a little bit better than the type of running back that DJ Giddens is. And again, like, that's not a knock on DJ Giddens. That's just the situation of, we talked about fit with K-State's basketball roster last year. Yeah, there was the personality fit, but there were a lot of people that even before the season started, I was not one of them. I said, screw off. That doesn't matter. These guys are good. Idiot. That they're like, well, the basketball fit, like, I don't know that's going to work together. I don't know how that's going to play out. And obviously it didn't. K-State made it work last year. And I still think they should have, they still should have beaten Houston. The loss to Arizona State, believe it or not, they turned out to be a pretty good team. And then tough environment to play Iowa State. Like, really the only truly unforgivable game last year was the Houston game.
Yeah, and for how bad that they were in that Arizona State game, like they still hung around pretty decent.
Well, and they had a touchdown taken off the board for a penalty. They had a bad fumble that took, like, they just, stuff happened in that game.
They played like a team that had a lot of younger classmen in the first moments of them really playing, and a first-time offensive coordinator calling plays. Like, yeah. I think that is kind of what killed them at times last year, because they didn't have many turnovers when you look at the full season, but it was when they happened and where they happened that kind of showed the inexperience.
BYU, Houston, Arizona State,
Iowa
State, you could throw in. Well, you know what? Fortunately, that wasn't great. And then the safety.
Then you even go back in the Tulane game. It was a kind of like that showcase of inexperience, because it was like the second or third play. K-State had a play that was just like the play at Iowa State, where it could have been a fumble or it could have not been a fumble, and it was ruled not a fumble.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's a great point. And I think, obviously, Avery Johnson, like, he got that year to kind of build up the experience and go off of it. Like, that's where, when you compare certain guys to other situations, you have to look at, where do they stack up with their age and everything. Like, yeah, Avery Johnson and Rocco Becht have been in college the same amount of time, and they're both juniors, but Rocco Becht got to play that full freshman season. It was just feet to fire. Like, he got to make all the mistakes then. And I think what we saw last year, he was less effective compared to his year before. Like, that's, I talked to Alec Bussey a lot, and that's the one area of concern that he kind of watches for Iowa State this coming year, is that it's a little perplexing that Rocco Becht's numbers got worse last year, despite the fact that he's got two fringe first, second round receivers that are going to the NFL.
Yards too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but he was able to be clean and such a leader at times. Like, he got to make those mistakes year one over the course of a full season, being that guy. Avery Johnson, he got the spot opportunities, but, like, Will Howard was still the guy, like that. It was a different type of deal. Last year, it was just thrown on, and immediately it's, hey, without this experience, it's typically vital to a lot of these guys. You got to go win. You got to go win the Big 12 for us, or something along those lines. Where, even thinking about Will Howard, like, how many games had he started prior to 2022 when he, took over in those games for Adrian Martinez? Like, it was a lot. And you think also, he was the starting quarterback of a team in the top 25, leading the Big 12 partway through that 2020 COVID season. And I get it was COVID and it was a different type of deal, but that was still experience that he got throughout that stretch. And by the time that he had, was playing in 2022, he had already thrown like over 220 passes in his collegiate career. Avery Johnson didn't have that. Yeah. So, like, that's where this thing, to me, stands out, where you're going to get a better version of Avery Johnson this year because of that reason. And that's where, like, if you look, he only threw 66 passes in 2023. He threw 372 last year. But if you look at, I would say that last season wasn't like disappointing from Avery Johnson, but it left me not as fulfilled and feeling as good as I wanted to moving into next year. But you go and look at everything, and like you listed off the accolades, like he set the single season passing touchdown record at K-State. And so, like, that's a step in the right direction. This guy that maybe didn't have the best season and had some struggle points, and I think he and everybody around him would admit that too. He still ended 42nd in the country in QBR. He still had some phenomenal games. Like we talk about, the plays that he made against Colorado where you needed it, and he was battling through injury in that game, and he made the big throw to Jace Brown. He picked it up. West Virginia just kind of picked him apart. And then, the KU game, there were some struggles there, a bad turnover that ended up being unfortunate. But, like, he made the things happen that you needed to. You saw enough last year where now that he's had that time and another full offseason to develop, I think he'll be good out of the gates. And never once, like we started this show talking about, have I questioned that he can be, the emotional leader and the level-headed guy to be in charge of K-State football. And I think we're going to see all of that kind of come out to fruition. And the blessing and the curse of all of this is that game number 1 is going to tell us a lot about this team to start the season. Week 0, foreign country against Iowa State, and they're going to be a competitive team to play. We'll see how K-State stacks up, and that's a good reminder for anybody that wants to be there to watch the Cats and the Clones kick off the season in a little over 4 months, that you can still do it by going to cats2ireland.com to experience the 2025 Aer Lingus College Football Classic in Dublin, Ireland. Go to cats2ireland.com. Get your game tickets, hospitality packages, travel packages. Make sure you get over there. And then really just experience everything you can in Ireland, not just the football game, but also different parts of the country, the different cities, all of the different customs and everything that you have going on there. So go to cats2ireland.com and they'll get you hooked up with all that. Drew, final thoughts from today.
Well, first I'm going to give you an Ireland fun fact. The national anthem of Ireland is called the Soldier Song, and is composed by Peter Carney and Patrick Heaney. The lyrics were written in 1909 in English. The Irish version, the lyrics were posted in 1923. It's played when the president of Ireland arrives at an official engagement. So I imagine we'll get an Irish national anthem while we're there.
Yeah, I would imagine before the game gets going. That would be my assumption.
A very kind of funny thing about it is that it says that there have been suggestions to replace the national anthem with different songs over the course of like the history, which I think is kind of funny.
Yeah, that is interesting. You said the guy's name was Peter Carney.
Yes.
Do you have any insight on him?
I can give you a little Wikipedia look.
Well, I was just
he composed numerous rebel songs in Ireland because he was an Irish Republican and he wrote this all in he wrote the song in 1907 and was adapted as a national anthem in 1909. So he was doing something right, apparently.
Okay, all right. Well, you want a Peter Carney fact on my end?
All right, let's go for it.
I played golf in high school against a guy named Pete Carney from Andale.
Gonna go ahead and say this is probably not the same guy.
Not the same guy. No, not at all. But that's just a little, you said Peter Carney, and the first thing I thought, I was like, I used to play golf against a guy named Pete Carney. Also a redhead. So
yeah, there you go. It might have been related.
I look forward to hearing the Ireland national anthem. That's, that we don't get to hear them in the World Cup because, again, they suck at soccer. But it's always fun to get to hear how different countries, what path they decide to go with their national anthem. So I'm not going to listen to the Irish national anthem until we get it live in front of us at K-State, Iowa State in the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. I feel like that's the best way to just, get me go, oh, hey, this is something. So looking forward to that. And that's a good fact for the day on the national anthem. I like that the soldier song makes it sound powerful. So
Yeah, figure that was a good one because we're learning more about like what
wildlife.
about wildlife and things. I was like, oh, I kind of wonder what the national anthem is like.
Yep. Sounds good. I like it. So, everybody, you can look forward to not just K-State, Iowa State on August 23rd in Dublin, but also the playing of the Soldier Song, probably, right? Like they have to play it before that game, I would imagine.
I mean,
So,
I would guess.
yeah. So get your tickets, travel packages, do all that.
If I was to guess, I think that we'll probably get both national anthems.
Yeah. Do you think they'll play like the state songs of Kansas and Iowa too, just to really?
I mean,
They
that would
should.
be kind of fun. Let's do
Yeah.
it. Let's do everything before the game.
Little home on the range before the Cats and Clones kick off. That really, the Irish people would really be like, "What the heck is this?" So we'll see what pageantry we get before the game.
Home on the range before the game would be electric.
Yeah. Well, let's make a push to get it done. I'm sure. I bet Scott Wildcat, mentioned him again. That guy would probably like home on the range to be played before K-State football games in Wildcat March. So maybe that's the move that he can get going. That's a compliment to him, by the way. He doesn't like when I bring him up in the DJ Giddens or Connor Riley talk. So I'm just trying to balance it out here. We'll get out of here. That'll do it for us today. Reminder though, if anything breaking news wise happens over the weekend in regards to K-State basketball and the transfer portal, we'll be here. We'll have coverage of that as the Cats are still hot on the trails of some guys internationally and here close to home. We also know that there are three guys in particular that might be most notable right now, and Derek Young has an update on that over at K-StateOnline and on 3. So head over there, get that checked out, and while you're there and you get through all your Cats content, you might as well go see the drama unfolding in Knoxville that we talked about at the start of the show. So go check out VolQuest too. You might get a kick out of what's going on over there. We're out of here. That'll close it down for the week.